I am in Estonia. I'm in Tallinn, Estonia. Who would have ever thought I would been here? But I mean, this is a great story. I'm with Kimmo Linkama, who was, I think, one of my first maybe 10 friends on Twitter. We were talking today about, we don't really remember how we got connected, but it was probably 2 years ago, and we've been friends, and we've actually even collaborated on a few small things. Kimmo, you're a native of Finland,
yep,
I guess,
right.
And moved here to Estonia a few years ago. So you kind of do the marketing, consulting, social media kind of thing like I do, right?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Although what I understand you do is more like a sort of strategy thing, whereas I am more in tactics. I am a copywriter and translator, and so I put other people's strategies to work.
Yeah. So one of the things I've always just been fascinated, as a matter of fact, Kimmo was the first person I ever interviewed on my blog, and I'm still interested in this subject about, in America, we just kind of take social media and using social media as a marketing channel for granted. But here it's a different story, and you've got a couple things working against you. So talk about, most of your business is in Finland, which of course is a developed country, and then you also have the perspective of living in Estonia, which is recovering from the communism rule.
Yeah, that's right. I think that if we talk about social media as a phenomenon, in America, of course, it's used for educational purposes as well, but the circles where I move from my marketing background is, of course, marketing. And what amazes me is that in Finland and in Estonia, social media is used very little for marketing. It's seen something like making peer groups talk to each other, and educational groups, and almost like sort of virtual book clubs or something like that.
So almost like the chat rooms that started out in the United States as kind of the stage where it is here.
Yes.
Yeah, and is that in Finland the same way? It's
yep.
Yeah.
I would say these two countries are pretty much on the same level there. Perhaps, well, what I've read and seen on the internet, I would even say that Estonians are a bit further ahead than Finns. But then again, it may be that I'm just following the wrong people.
Yeah. Now tell me about your blog. You have you blog, well, maybe infrequently.
Yes.
A couple times a month, maybe.
Yeah. Unfortunately,
yeah.
I'm trying to get my act together, but
yeah.
So far I haven't been able to.
But you have. Tell me about. You've got an English blog,
yeah.
And you've got a Finnish blog.
Yeah, that's right.
Finnish blog. So tell me about your strategy and how does that. Is that getting you business? Is that important in this type of emerging social media market?
Well, I don't think I can attribute a single business project to either of those blogs. But looking at the stats, I would say that they are clearly useful. Mm-hmm. Because when my name pops up somewhere, or I make a blog post about a topical issue, then I can immediately see a peak in the stats. Mm-hmm. So I've sometimes said, not being by any means a social media expert myself, but it seems to be clear to me that everybody, or let's say every business, because I come from the B2B side, should be on the internet and should be blogging and should take part in social media, if not for any other reason than to be able to be found on searches.
Yeah.
So it serves very well as background information, and at least for me, that, or my own experience, let's put it this way, seems to reinforce this view.
Yeah, and you also mentioned to me that having the English language blog gives you the opportunity to have a bigger reach, have a more global reach, rather than these relatively small markets of Estonia and Finland.
That's true, yes. And I've been, well, as consistently as I can, time-wise, and resource-wise to expand to the English-speaking countries elsewhere, and of course the United States being in the forefront and as a forerunner of sort of the use of social media in marketing. I've been reading quite a lot about it, and it certainly is my goal to pursue this thing further and try to perhaps eventually get some clients from abroad.
Well, and it's an interesting opportunity for you, where I know that you've been studying this intensely for a couple of years now, so you'll be able to establish yourself as a voice of authority in this region. Really an interesting opportunity for you. One of the things that you mentioned to me that I thought was so fascinating is we've had the opportunity to tour Eastern Germany and Russia and now Estonia, which until very recently was under Soviet occupation, was a communist ruled country. And we were talking a little bit about the changes. Estonia seems to have really been taking a great leadership role in revitalizing itself and embracing a free market economy. And we were talking about some of the impacts on customer service, which I thought was very interesting, where there was this mentality before in the Soviet occupation where if you had the rubber stamp, you had the rule. Yeah. But you're starting to see that change maybe a little bit in Estonia. Tell me some more about that.
Yes, it's well, understandable in a way, because the Soviet system seemed to be that those in positions of authority, or perhaps even perceived authority, they really used it to the max, and it resulted in rather tragicomical situations where people who had an important stamp could just make you dance how much they wanted to get that stamp. But now you can clearly see that the younger generation that's coming into customer service, they are really up to date. They know why they are there. They know what to do to make the customer experience a pleasurable one, and it's really amazing how, well, within 1 or 2 generations, if you think that somebody's grandfather was a government official and his father or mother was in this transition period, and now they are themselves coming into this from the sort of free economy point of view, how well it sticks. And well, I don't usually talk a lot about politics in connection with marketing, but I could draw the conclusion that the free economy is the better choice.
Well, quickly, what's going on in some of these former Soviet countries that are near Estonia? So you've got Estonia and Latvia, or maybe even Russia. Are they embracing Facebook? Are they embracing Twitter, YouTube? Or do they have their own platforms emerging? Or what's happening there?
Yeah. Well, the penetration of the social media is not as high as, for example, in the States. But and as far as the platforms go, I think well, this is more like I don't know this. I haven't seen any figures, but it seems to be so that Russians are very much on LiveJournal because it's owned by a Russian company.
LiveJournal?
Yeah. And Twitter is picking up. Facebook is ubiquitous, much bigger than Twitter, for example. And but the
is there an Estonian version of Facebook, or is it in English?
Well, it's been translated into Estonian.
Okay.
And the communities there are smaller and tighter, I would say, than what I've seen in the American versions I've been looking at. And the frequency of posting is also quite different from what it is in America, because if you read the marketing best practices or social media best practices, the overall or the sort of usual recommendation is at least once a day, let's say a blog post, several Twitter tweets.
Yeah.
But in my Finnish and Estonian communities, it's not at all infrequent that people post maybe once a week, even on Twitter. Actually, I think it's pretty much like how it is in marketing in general, that the actual things that happen, they are the same everywhere, in the same sort of economical atmosphere or economical circle.
Yeah.
But the frequency and the intensity is much slower, and it seems to be somehow calm. If I look at my Twitter feed, where I follow lots of Americans and Brits and Australians, it's frantic. And when I look at the Estonian and Finnish Twitterers, I get maybe 1 or 2 tweets from them every day.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing,
Yeah.
but
About
much slower.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It reminds me of one of my students who was coming up with a social media marketing plan for her business, and she said, "Well, our plan is to go from 1 tweet per week to 2 tweets per week." I thought, well, you need to read my book, baby. I think that's the answer. You need to translate my book into Estonian and
Right.
Finnish.
Okay. Actually, I'd love to do that.
Yeah, and you could give. There's money in it for you. Believe me.
Oh,
So
even
anyway,
better, even better.
Kimmo Linkama, one of my favorite people on Twitter and the social web, plowing new ground here in Estonia and in Finland. So thanks, Kimmo, for meeting with us today on Grow.
You're welcome, and what a great inspiration. I'll have to live up to that.
Thanks.